So if we could call the meeting to order of Harris County Improvement District Number 1 Board of Directors meeting December 4th, 2019. Our first item is to approve the minutes of the October 10th Board of Directors meeting found on tab 1, page 1, which I think was sent out before. And if we have a motion to approve,
So moved.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment or question? Our next item is to review the quarterly investment report found under tab 2, page 3. And Shannon, if you could help us with that.
Okay, thank you. This first page of the quarterly investment report kind of outlines by funds the balances that we had in each fund. The reporting period is July through September 30th, 2019. In our general operating fund, we had roughly $2.9 million of deposits with Capital One Bank, who's our primary depository. $1 million with the BBVA Compass in a depository account, and then $1.5 million in CDs with BBVA, for a total of $5.4 million. Our capital projects fund, we had roughly $6.8 million in our Capital One deposit account, and $1.2 million remaining in our Regions Managed Investment account, for a total of $8.1 in capital funds. Likewise, debt services with our primary depository Capital One, and we had just over $380,000 in that account. We did make debt service payments in September. And in our general operating fund and capital projects fund, we are spending according to our capital budget as well as our operating budget. The second page of this report kind of outlines those funds that are in deposit accounts that require collateral and any investments that we have. Our secondary depository, our $1 million of deposits and 1.5 in CDs is sufficiently collateralized with BBVA using the Federal Home Loan Bank letter of credit. Capital One Bank, they've sufficiently collateralized all of our deposits with them in our capital account and operating account. And then lastly, our Regions investment account is an investment account which is doesn't require collateral, but they are invested in short-term treasuries and agencies that are approved in our investment report. Under compliance training, we are in compliance. The next training for the investment officer will be in 2020. And that is the report for the quarter. Are there questions or concerns?
If not, could you take us through the budget report found on page 5?
Okay, thank you. This page 5 is the year-to-date and budget to actual for capital projects, the remaining of our bond proceeds. If you note revenues available, our budget, we had 11.9, we have roughly 10.5 actual. We've spent so far to date $3.6 million total capital projects you see there. And we have roughly an ending balance, cash balance of 6.9. We expect to be within budget where we'll have just a little over $300,000 left. You'll note that what we have not spent fully on is our Post Oak Lane, finishing that project up, as well as the $4 million budgeted for our new intersection rings. So we are on target for our capital projects. The next page over, page 6, is operating. I do apologize, there's a lot of information on here. The first 3 columns kind of looks at what we spent for the first quarter, actual budget, and then a percent of that. If we're on target in terms of the forecasting, you'll see 100% there. If it's a little low, we're a little slow. If it's high, then we may be a little high in that quarter. The next 3 columns represent year-to-date, where we are year-to-date actual versus year-to-date budget, and a percentage likewise. And then the last column is just for your reference, so you'll know what the total annual budget is for our operating program. If you have any questions, let me know, but pretty much we're on target. If you look at the bottom row, you'll see that for the first quarter, we were at 93% of budget, and year-to-date, we're at 101%, so that's pretty good. We might have some variations as we go on, and we'll talk about those as we get through the year.
Shannon, just one question. If we go back to the revenue side, and I'm looking here at Avalon current revenue, and it shows $0 in then it says percent of budget, it says 100%.
Yeah, we don't expect anything now, this is the first quarter,
Okay.
so we expect to get our tax revenues in about this time. They start trickling in December, I think your taxes are due December 31st, or the first, whichever one. But we start getting some in December, and then it really picks up in January, February, where we get most of our, current revenue.
Okay, any questions about that? If not, we can move on to the next item, to approve and authorize the filing of the district's annual report, found on page 7. And Jessica, if you could help us with that.
For those of you I haven't met yet, I'm Jessica Hollaback and Ellen Humphries Robinson. We're the district's bond counsel. And so I'm here today to talk with you about your annual continuing disclosure filing. When you have sold bonds in the past, you make a covenant that you're going to keep certain financial and operating information up to date, and it gets filed with the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board electronic filing. So on page 7 under tab 2, this is pretty simple and straightforward this year. We're filing your financial statement, which I believe is item 7 on the agenda. So once that's approved, we're gonna attach your financial statement and file it with the electronic depository. I do need to ask for a motion authorizing that filing.
Jessica, can we do both item on our agenda 5 and 6 simultaneously?
Item 6 is an annual review. There's no.
Page 8.
No action needs to be taken. You have adopted a written policy on what procedures your consultants take to make sure that you make your continuing disclosure filings annually. It's a big deal if you miss one. And we have conveniently scheduled your review right after we've made the filing so that you know your policy is actually working. I'm not making any recommendations to change the policy, but part of it is to review it annually and make any tweaks if it's not working, but nothing to recommend to change now. You just had to hear me talk about it.
Okay, now that we've reviewed those two items, I'd like to request a motion to approve the district's annual report and authorize filing of the same in accordance with the district's continuing disclosure of information agreement as required by SEC Rule 15C2-12. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Jessica, did we get over did we pull it off?
We're done with me. Items 5 and 6 are complete.
All right, well, that takes us to the audit, and we have a handout. And I'd like to introduce Selena Cicedes to take us through that, please. Did I pronounce your name well?
Yes.
Anywhere
thank you.
close?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me here. Chris Rowe, one of my partners, presented earlier this week on Monday to the audit committee. And so here we are to present to the full board. The results of the 2019 financial statement audit as well as our single audit are presented in the next slides. These were our team members throughout the year that worked very closely with Shannon and the rest of her team. And so we do want to thank Shannon for all of her hospitality and being responsive to all of our requests. The audit process starts with the planning, which includes risk assessment, a review of internal controls, identifying key controls, especially when it comes down to the federal programs. Once Shannon closes the books after June 30th, we perform our substantive testing so that we can get comfortable with the transactions included in the financial statements as well as the balances presented within the statements, and all, of course, to issue an opinion. So there's 3 types of opinions that an entity can receive, and they worsen as you go from right to left. Of course, you always want to earn that unmodified opinion or clean opinion. And so we're pleased to report that the district has received or earned an unmodified or clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that you can receive on any set of financial statements. Because you do spend more than $750,000 in federal funds, in fact, you spent $23 million in federal funding, we have to perform an audit in accordance with government auditing standards. So we've included our report that also reports on compliance. We also have to report on internal controls over financial reporting, and we have no material weaknesses nor any significant deficiencies to report. If we have found any federal or state non-compliance, we'd be required to report that here as well in this report. I mentioned earlier that you do spend $23 million in federal funds. That federal program is the Federal Transit Cluster. We are also issuing an unmodified opinion on that federal program. No instances of non-compliance or question cost to report. In addition to the internal controls that we evaluate over financial reporting, we're also looking at the internal controls over this federal program. Again, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. If we look at the statement in that position, which is everything that the district owns and it owes, and so this is different from the fund financial statements that you receive from Shannon on your operating statement. So this includes capital assets as well as long-term liabilities, which you typically don't see on your fund financial statements. You have your total assets at $46.7 million, which is a slight increase of about $2 million, $2.2 million, I'm sorry, $1 million, I can't add today, $1.2 million from the prior year. Your total liabilities did increase by about $5 million. Your total net position or your net worth is $2.6 million. That unrestricted net position category is a deficit because you do issue bonds, but there's no related capital assets to offset that because they do go over to UDA. So that those bonds are issued for that. About 60% of the liabilities are maintained here and 40% are actually allocated to the capital assets. So part of the liabilities are in that net investments and capital assets, excuse me, and then the rest in the unrestricted category. If we look at your revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, these are your fund financial statements. Your general fund did decrease by about $700,000, primarily because the maintenance and beautification expenditures got over budget by $800,000. Your capital projects did decrease by about $1.4 million. Your debt service did increase slightly under $200,000 between 2018 and 2019. We look at your budget to actual, your total revenues did exceed the budget by about $128,000, and your total expenditures were over budget by $1.1 million. Your net change, again, just for the general operating, for all of your fund financials, are $717,000 decrease. You started the year at $7.6 million, and you ended the year at $6.8 million in fund balance. If we dissect your expenditures, transfers to UDA are $23.5 million, and that number is very familiar because those are the federal expenditures, the Federal Transit Cluster that's transferred over to UDA. Your capital outlay is $11.4 million, which in the statement in that position gets translated into capital assets. Your debt service total $3.72, that's your principal and interest payments on your bonds. Your general administrative costs were $3.2 million, maintenance and beautification were $2.6, traffic control $1.3, and other was slightly under $1 million. So again, your expenditures for fiscal year 19 were $46.8 million compared to $45.1 million from the prior year. Excuse me. If we look at your intergovernmental, the revenues, intergovernmental is the highest at $25 million. Property taxes, second highest at $9.4 million, with investment earnings and other at about $300,000. Your total revenues were $34.8 million compared to last year at $35.2 million. Required communications, if there were any changes, we did implement GASB number 88 for any private placements. So there was an additional disclosure on your financial statements that is properly disclosed, and we're here to report that to you here. Any estimates have to be reported to you as well. Of course, depreciation is an estimate based on the useful lives of those capital assets, so that estimate is incorporated into the financial statements. We do believe that the estimated useful life of these capital assets are reasonable based on management's estimates, and they are in line with industry standards. If we had any difficulties in performing our audit, we'd be required to report those to you here today and earlier this week, and we're pleased to report that there are none. We didn't have any material misstatements that were identified that required management's corrections other than presentation only journal entries. Any disagreements would have been reported here as well, and again, we have none to report. The last piece of audit evidence is the management representation letter coming from your management team, excuse me, asserting that they've provided everything to us to perform our audit, that they have not withheld any documentation or information that would have a material effect on our financial statements. And so that was provided to management and received as well, so that we can issue the final report. If management had consulted with other accountants, in effect opinion shopping, we'd be required to report that to you, but to our knowledge, that has not occurred. Again, any discussion of accounting principles was not as a result of, any recommendations was not so that we could be retained as your auditor. So again, everything, we're required to be independent, and so we do assert that we're independent of the district. Any questions for me?
Shannon, do you want to explain the expenditures? I'll be glad to follow up.
Oh, yeah, I did, I actually did, so I would make sure that it was consistent to what we presented to the board back in June when we went over our budget. Again, we explained when we did our budget for looking at 19 and preparing for 20, we were over budget in maintenance and beautification primarily. That had to do with increased service on the West Loop, by about $150,000 because of the trash pickup and the encampments that we wanted to keep that area clean. We also spent quite a bit to make the area more holiday and festive and lit during the holiday season. And so that was not budgeted, but we did like the arches and we did some more work there, and you guys were aware of that. And then there was some other installation of the stars, which was area-wide. There was a cost for our vendor to install those and take those down. So those kind of extra efforts together caused us to be over budget in maintenance and beautification. Did I miss anything, Mr. Bridges? Are there any other questions or concerns?
I don't think so. Thank you, Selena, for the presentation.
Thank you.
And I guess we had Director Crump, Werner, and Miller at the meeting. It was very well conducted. We even had a session without staff in the room to just be sure that if anything should come up that needs our attention, it would. And we all felt very satisfied with the audit process. And I would call on Mr. Crump or Mr. Werner if they had any other comments, and we'll need a motion to approve the audit.
No, I think we were all very satisfied with it. We did ask a lot of questions and got good answers. So I think Kendall, we recommended that the audit be approved.
Is there a
For
second?
approval.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor? All right, the audit is approved, which takes us to our last item, which is to receive an update on projects, tab 3, from Mr. Breeding and Mr. Coffey.
We're gonna do a construction update on the projects. Selena, thank you very much for your presentation, your work. And also Delia is gonna give you a little bit of update on what happened Thanksgiving night. So, Mr. Tobby, you're up.
And this is, again, from very far north. This is I-10 overchange for Post Oak Road. Again, this is where the construction of the transit center for Metro's project is going on. I believe Small Class is doing that. And this is the section between the transit center and where TxDOT left off that is now awarded to Raytech, which is the contractor that did our middle portion here of the roadway. This is a rendering, I believe, of the transit center as it's going to be rebuilt. And we're going to do our
I didn't progress as fast as you spoke, I apologize.
famous flyover.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, again, we're looking from the very far north end heading south. They are going to not widen the road, but they're going to put a separate structure in for pedestrian walkway so they can get enough lanes to get over the structure of I-10, and then have 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction to tie into the elevated section that starts just north here of Memorial. There would be a intersection right here that's going to be constructed that allows the buses to pull in and pull out and cars to get around.
Robert, so is the construction responsible all the way down to that end of that green by TechStop?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay.
TechStop is working on the retained area right here, and then they become elevated as they approach Memorial. They have all their elevated structure now done. As we going to increase our speed, head down the elevated structure, which you've seen before, to get over Woodway and to the bayou, where they shift over to the middle of the roadway and come down. This is the primary area of work for TechStop at this point on this project, is they have cut down through the main lanes, moved them over. They had the room for several years to do that. They're rebuilding the retaining walls to keep the main lanes structurally sound and get us down and the buses down to grade. As you approach here towards underneath, a little bit further, the cars, if you stop right there, okay, just because everybody gets confused, this will be the new U-turn, which we'll look at when we fly over it. This is new pavement that is done, and on either side of the columns, one direction northbound, one direction southbound, is where the bus lane ties into the intersection underneath the structure of Post Oak. It waits until it gets its bar signal, which tells it that there is no conflict movement that allows the buses to come into and out of that lane and across the eastbound lanes of Post Oak Boulevard. The drone can't do that, so it's gonna fly over the new U-turn, and we are going to start down the boulevard.
Robert, what is the unofficial best guess right now for completion?
Best guess for completion is that they've always said they would make the March opening. At this point, there's rumblings from Williams Brothers, the contractor, as to difficulties, and I think it's a positioning rumble, and I think they will make the March completion of the bus lanes.
Delia even got a better forecast than Robert, so it looks good. It looks good.
It's almost a brag.
Yeah. It might have been more of a bag too. Okay?
So this is just a couple days ago, right, Dahlia?
It was on Monday.
And so our lights are up, but they don't stand up very much in the bright sunlight. But what we're gonna do is just quickly go down, because you've seen this many times, and basically what you haven't seen is a clean lane, which you will see. We don't have very much activity because construction is done on all this, except for the installation of Metro devices at the Metro stations, which will happen after the new year. But everything else is completed as we continue to fly south. We will be refreshing striping that's a couple years old here at San Felipe, and we will be putting our bus lane symbols and words down on the bus lane, so there's gonna be some striping that is going to go on after the first of the year. Don't think we'll try to get it in December, but we'll have to be careful on that. But the only thing lacking would be the striping. All the signals have been turned on. The lanes are 10.5 feet, bus lanes, and 10 feet at the station. We are in discussions with Metro as to the docking aspects of how they now proceed to dock the bus into the platform, and they are all excited about it. And we'll have a new product for that. It's called a gap filler. Gap filler, yeah. Because there will be a small gap between the bus platform and the bus, and they want something that reaches out and touches the bus but not damages the bus. It comes with little plastic stuff. So we continue south, we're done again. There's a little bit of probably landscaping work in those trucks that we're doing as we continue.
I'm going to point out a couple things here. You will see, keep going, Dave. You will see a jaywalker That we have anywhere from 1 to 20 people do that at once.
With baby strollers and all sorts of stuff.
And we currently, if you drive by, there's some really distasteful signs that say no pedestrian crossing. But they can't read the symbols or the words, I suppose. And we are putting officers actually in the lanes during the holidays. We will continue to try to figure out how to deal with it, but people are used to crossing into Neiman's. I'd love to see Neiman's close that side door. But we're eventually, when the buses are running, it's going to be a very dangerous thing. And also, this is the danger of, if any of you drive infrequently downtown, you go downtown and you see the role that pedestrians play, we're going to be facing that a lot more, because we have people walking out to get on the transit and walking across the street. And, you know, how we can educate people to, one, respect the pedestrian, get pedestrians to respect the cars and the buses. It's probably going to be one of the hardest things we do in coming. We're talking about doing things like West Alabama at Post Oak Boulevard. A lot of those cars that headed east, they get caught out in the middle and just sit there. And then it messes up left-hand turns and everything else. So we're going to look at how you going into painting off, don't block the box, if you will, and then have officers there to try to enforce it. So we think it's going to require a very heavy hand with off-duty police officers in terms of the number of people and where they're located, particularly in the peak period. But we've got to find some ways to better educate the driver out here about the pedestrian.
Well said.
And I already got a few trompe l'oeil ideas. But I mean, just look at this. I mean, stop real quick. Could you back up, Delia, just a little bit? This is the only location where we have two stations side by side at Williams Tower. It's just different. It's interesting. And I'd encourage you, if you have some time, or if at some point we'd like to, at a board meeting, take the board and actually go down the bus lane, get off at the stations or whatever. The stations are accessible, well lit in the evening. Metro, as Robert mentioned, we're working with them now to implement their ticket vending equipment, phones, safety lights, cameras, things like that onto the platforms. But the platforms still work, glasswork, paving, even our railings to protect them are all in place. We're essentially complete. Go ahead, Al. And our little blue lights on top of our station, so if you're ever out here and you're looking for a transit stop, the little blue lights are up on top as a recurring element.
So this is Hidalgo, and again, as we get beyond these arches, is where we had to stop our work waiting for TxDOT to complete their structure. So if you can stop right up, no, a little bit more there. Again, this is a new ramp that was constructed. It's done over Richmond, which gives the opportunity for the northbound lanes, which last week were just poured. They need to be tied into the existing pavement, and this is the median, 4-foot median that will extend down. We'll have a bus shelter here and a bus shelter there. And TxDOT is currently working south of Richmond to complete that area. And we have approximately 90 days. We think we can get bus lanes in, trees in, lights in, shelter in, lights on the shelters. All that stuff has to be done in the next 90 days. We've got the contractor that you awarded 2 months ago, lined up and ready to rock and roll. In fact, they're currently working at the corners here, trying to find the locations for the traffic signal shafts and foundations that have to go in. And the rest of the work that you see is TxDOT. as of today, they're inviting us into this 46 feet with dirt in the middle that will allow us to get working on that in the next 90 days.
Robert, would you repeat that? As of today?
As of today.
As of since 9 o'clock this morning? All right, go ahead, Deb. When I left the meeting, we didn't have invitations.
The TxDOT is quietly, had their contractor continue to work south of here. You can see the base material being leveled for the northbound lanes. This will be done in the next week. They'll get completed that. This is our middle area that's going to come, and as we fly down into the depressed area, we can see what really they haven't done. Go ahead.
Photos next.
Oh, you wanted to do more? Okay.
John, can we ask a question on that piece?
Yes, sir.
When do we think we'll have buses running? I heard March earlier from Williams, but what do we think that operational side will look like?
The target is end of the first quarter of 2020, has been, and this is probably the most sensitive piece of getting done by that date. And there are fallbacks. Metro could reroute buses down Rice or Sage and then use the frontage road to come back. But we think we're gonna make this.
So they'll have the transit centers done in,
Robert's gonna talk about the big transit center down south, and I'm gonna correct Robert, these aren't called bus shelters, Robert, these are Metro Rapid stations. Would you work on that just a little bit? You can see here just a little bit of the stations. We have 14 of the 16 down, the only two that Robert just talked about down at the Richmond Fairdale stations. And, but you can imagine, this is a pretty common occurrence that on a bus route you roll into a station with Christmas trees and roses growing. Just give you just a little insight here. The lights that are coming, we light not only the sidewalks in the stations, but we're also lighting the trees out in the median to just help the overall environment as well as, of course, keep the buses working. And I'm proud of the detail on this. In 1992, we put stainless steel street lights and signal poles up in this area, and we wash those once a month. We wash them thoroughly once a year, and they've remained, I think, as good looking as the day they went up there. And I just the effort, the level of detail Robert and his crew have done with putting in these. If you walk up this ramp is sturdy. This ramp is strong, and as well as the railing here. This is the bus that will be the BRT or the Metro Rapid bus for the corridor. And I will tell you, they had one out for Thanksgiving evening at San Felipe's, the southbound station. I will tell you that the bus and the stations really work together well. It gives you a very sophisticated, very high-end transit kind of feel to it. I'll tell you that right now the bus has 5 sets of doors. It has one up front, and then these 2 that's shown here, and then there are even 2 on the other side, so that if this ever gets extended to downtown, that they can basically run on the light rail stations that are going east-west through downtown, and we'll be running along there, and we'll actually load and unload out the left side doors. And so I dropped by, I happened to run into Metro's head of operations at Thanksgiving, and his front door was up past where our control box and our electrical box is. You basically couldn't use it to get in and out. And I said, you're up a little bit far, aren't you? He goes, no. He says, I think we're going to try to operate with these 2 doors. They're big, double wide doors and everything else. He says, you know, if you open the front door, it feels like you're getting on a bus. I mean, I actually interpret that as them buying into what we've been trying to do here. We worked, Ed Wolf, rest in peace, Ed and I and our designers worked with Metro. Their first designs, their first, second, third, and fifth designs weren't near this nice. We gave them really some great designs, and Ed lobbied harder. It's not exactly where where we thought we ought to go, but I think it ended up as being a very, very atypical bus. I think it's gonna offer a unique perspective and a unique level of service that they have branded Metro Rapid.
Is it gonna be branded on the side, some Uptown? Like
They're,
maybe this, just this design, Uptown?
now, the stations are ours, the buses are theirs, and that bus will be in other parts of the city. And so, other than wouldn't be the only one for a few years, that's kind of, we break the line at that bus because we can't control that bus. They own it, they control it. We own and control
Will there be
everything else.
Wi-Fi on the bus?
I don't know that they have Wi-Fi on the bus. I know on their commuter buses they do. On these as well?
I don't know if they'll be on this one, but they do have on commuter buses.
Give you just a couple other photographs, just interior, very light rail vehicle looking, very nice color, seating. And Delia, to be honest, didn't quite know what this area is. This is the transporter location.
What's that?
Should be a little bit alive.
Star Trek?
Yeah, Star Trek. Star Trek.
Who knows what that is?
That's,
So what is a transporter?
if you, I simply.
Just from one car to the other, you
I
better
was,
let that go.
yeah, I'm gonna walk away. It was obviously way too much of a Star Trek.
Spit while you're behind.
Yeah, thank you, John, but you actually will be able to stand.
Hey,
those
you're
areas.
small, but you're slow.
And I believe this is a little bit, I think this is a little, they're just learning. They were pretty sensitive to taking off here, but I think Delia's gonna show you here in a moment that the bus actually pulls away from the station.
Is there also is there gonna be like an app for Metro that tells you the bus is arriving in 3 minutes or 5 minutes,
Yes.
or whatever the time is?
The answer to all of those, and they'll be even on the platform, there'll be messaging signs that will tell you that as well. We are working very closely with them. What we think is a really important job for us is to go into the companies and tell guys like me, this is how you use transit. This is how you get a fare card, how you get fare on your phone and how you use it. How do you get from your home to a park and ride lot? How do you get from, what's the fare to ride? And where will it go and how will you transfer and how can you use this at lunch? We're really laying out a program working with Metro to go in and be very, very, give me my phone. Proactive, give me your phone and we'll put this all on there. So we hope to work very closely with Metro.
The app
really,
does tell you when the next bus is coming, right?
the app, I'm gonna ask, does the app tell you when your next bus is coming?
It does, and in fact, they've got an app that will, you can use it at any bus stop. That'll show you all the buses that connect to that stop and the time of their arrival, and they actually show the map of the route and where the buses are.
Wow, see, that's really awesome, it's like United, where you can see where the plane is. That's cool. I think it's awesome, yeah, like Uber, basically, yeah.
Okay, Robert, now you're up.
Okay, just looking down at Richmond again, that's the elevated structure textile build in the dirt that we're gonna play in the next 90 days. And we're gonna go south of Richmond and get to the point of the depressed area. We'll have the opportunity for the 300 feet, which is almost the driveway here, to have the 4-foot median. But at this point, things are getting constricted because of the frontage road aspect and the college that we're gonna come up to. So we come up to the bus lane, we need 1 lane in each direction as we go forward. This is temporary use by connecting there. But in this portion, it's 1 lane in each direction. And comes up to a structure that was part of the hurry up, let's get it done, TxDOT please. This structure over the Hectra exit ramp at this point. So this all had to be new structurally built. It comes up to just east of the existing frontage road at West Park. And that's where we have, again, just like the post oak, we have a phase that we'll be able to turn into and out of that bus lane. That is a left turn basically for buses and a right turn out of for buses. At this point, if we could stop just a minute, the concrete meeting barrier on the left is our work that you allowed us to do on West Park. We just let a little contract, and we're going to widen West Park enough so that we can have a continuous left turn lane. So eastbound would have that left turn so buses could get to a queue jump, because nobody else can use it, to get to the front of the queue to make the left turn into the bus to go in Uptown. Then they come out, they get into mixed flow, and then beyond that point, they'll get into another left turn that gets them into the transit way. So they're protective and almost exclusive. The only other use for the left turn is for those people going.
At the
into
southbound frontage road, there is no one else turning left except the BRT buses.
So we're widening the inlet over here work. We're gonna widen about 10 feet on one side, down to about 5. It varies, starting with the toll road again, exit ramp up here, but we have enough room to do both. We will be constructing, I don't think we can see it, but there's some wooden poles at the entrance, right over there, to the, I don't think you can see it, but it's the entrance that we have for the for the transit center on West Park. We'll put a temporary traffic signal in there until we get the poles in and complete that work, which will be in January, February. But we believe in this month we might be able to get the temporary signal going.
Dave, could you hold it right there? Robert, you might sort of talk about the layer cake or what's going on.
We're looking north, Uptown being the far distance, and this is an emergency road off of Anderson Street that we have to have a fire exit that goes through. The main entrance is over here on this side, and this is the ramp that goes to the second level, which is the parking level that we squeezed in between the upper deck, which serves the HOVs off the T-ramp, and the lower, which serves the our buses and any local buses that want to use the lower level for transfer of passengers.
And parking is gonna be on the second level and on the ground.
Half of it is covered by that portion. This is open.
Is parking free?
That's a Metro issue. Marguerite, you,
I'm not aware of it now, but normally in a situation like that, we do the Cypress where there is a charge to the parking so that we don't have excessive parking or other people park. And that is also deducted from that ride that they will be
From
taking.
the fare.
The fare that they normally would take to ride the bus in the system.
So you would charge like $3 for a car to park, and then charge you for the ticket?
Well, it just depends on location, because on our parking rides, it is a higher amount, and then it may be $1 to get in there because you gotta have a fare card, and then it deducts from the ride that you take.
for example, if somebody drove in there and just wanted to take the Metro Rapid BRT up, that's a $1.50 ride, I guess, from the transit center, is it? And so the parking could be fairly economical. And we don't,
So you don't pay for parking if you ride, basically?
Correct.
Okay, that's,
Correct.
yeah.
okay,
So we have some
Thank
roofing material stored here up for the top of the canopy. That canopy sits over the buses that come off the T-ramp right here. And I think we're flipping around again. This is the T-ramp that goes into the existing transit HOV lane, managed lane.
Is that bus only that utilizes that?
yes.
These are the buses coming in from Sugarland and whatever that come in.
HOV buses
Get
on,
off, they let the people that wanna come here, come off, people wanna go downtown, they get back on, and they continue on their trip. So this is the transfer location. Those are all HOV lanes, all HOV buses. This is the north side where we have some decorative, I guess you'd call it, metal screening to break up a little bit of the concrete work that we've done.
excuse me, Rebecca.
And this is the entrance from underneath the structure. We had a lot of issue, and John actually found it, when Micro Center was built, he stood at that corner where the porta potty was. And we looked underneath the West Park Toll Road, and we said, I think we could get it underneath there. We got a lane, which we'll put a signal on West Park, and people can get in and out right under the toll road before the embankment, and they come through, and this is how they enter into the structure. For the local buses and our buses are dedicated lanes, and then they turn right to go into the ramp for the parking structure. We have emergency stairwells on either end of it, and we have elevators that have been delivered and are being installed. It is the last thing going in, and it's supposed to be done by the end of January, the elevators, end of December. It's bleeding into a little bit of January before all the MEP is going to be complete, striping, landscaping, and stuff. But we have, the weather sticks like this, we have a good chance of trying to get it done before the calendar year, which is substantial completion date that we have.
Robert, can you explain on this, what is local and what is Metro Rapid BRT location? Or can you tell from this photograph?
This is looking, you
West?
can tell, this is the second loop, and so if it has the curve, it has a curve and a curve, this is for the local buses, this is extra. There is also some loading on this side, but the buses are coming in off the far side, coming through, and our buses will need a straight curve line, 14-inch curve, 14 inches high, just like our platforms out here, our stations out here. And so, and this is up on top of these, not our buses, so it's regular 6-inch curves with where the bus pulls in and then pulls back out, so you can get underneath the canopy there.
Do the elevator locations show up in this photograph? Excuse me.
Yeah, there's two on one side and one on the other side is basically where you can still see that coming down, the steel plate.
Robert, what's it, my understanding is that Metro now has access.
Metro and their consultants have access, they're looking at what they may have missed in their design initially, and looking as to where they're gonna put their equipment that they want. We put the conduit in that they had, our engineer, that they approved the design on, so we believe we got it all there, but there are gonna be some changes that they want to do. So we're trying to start a dance. With them.
Substantial completion the end of this month, and contract says March.
The punch list to go on for about 6 weeks beyond that.
Any questions?
So the buses we saw on the photograph on right there, those buses will just run between the two trains?
That's correct.
For now?
For now. Metro is looking at doing BRT service up to the high-speed rail if it happens, and then from the Northwest Transit Center to downtown.
And then how often do you think a bus would show up?
We are, I think they're committed to 5 to 6 minute headways. And then some of that's controlled because I think that's what they run the trains on, and obviously demand. But as computer technology is applied to this, we could probably even get down to 2.5 minutes or so if that kind of demand exists. So, Mr. Chairman, I have, we have one more. Debbie?
So, oh yeah, because it'll start on that.
Okay, I'm not gonna start. I'll bring you the switch.
So after 2 years of being gone, actually 3, Uptown Lighting was back, and I think people were waiting for this. In 3 days leading up to the event, we had 55 TV broadcast hits. We had 5 live stations here the day before the event, and then of course the day of the event. We received 2 front page covers on the Houston Chronicle. We had the cover of the, what is the magazine called? Preview magazine, that's right. And over 1 million impressions on Facebook. And 700,000 people that engaged in Facebook and in other social media. So Facebook being the one that I think most people use in this area. So these are just little copies, but this was the day before the event, which normally doesn't happen. This on the front page of the paper. And this is the front page of the city-state section the next day after. And so we always talk about being above the fold, so it's pretty big. And so we're real happy with it. There's still kind of lots of stuff coming back in, media coming in, and so the interest is there, and people were waiting for it, and they're excited, and this year we treated them as something new, which were all of the holiday trees that you all approved for us to put in the holiday decor to add to the stars that we had last year. And so if you all weren't able to make the event, some of the local acts that we have on the stage, Santa comes out, and this year we had the mayor come out along with the lieutenant governor, and together they plugged at the lights to light up the boulevard and start the fireworks show, and that's where we are.
The street looks incredible. Incredible.
Sorry, I actually have this down. And this is gonna be the finale of the fireworks show. And then it'll go right into the trees. So you'll see that.
This is the last minute of the 2-minute show.
It should be Post Oak Central's marketing person.
Jonathan, I'd like to talk to you about whether we can shoot off here.
Are they shooting it off the roof?
Shooting off the roof of Post Oak Central 2, and then off of the 2 garages on either side.
The great thing about this fireworks show is there are 2 false endings. So people think this is just this really long fireworks show because they think it's over and it keeps going. And so
This is your tree. So they don't normally do this, but we wanted them to kind of show their legs, if you will, here. And so it's a notice the pylons, pedestrian lights there, lighting up. Go ahead, Jay, just let it run. And so you can see that. And then these lights also light up the trees. If you'll notice the oak trees, kind of part of the environment. If we want to create a purple world, we can. And if you drive down the boulevard over the next month, you'll see all of this.
Were there any incidents?
Other than Robert being kept dangerous, no. The police told me that they had a couple of people that, homeless that got involved, and it turns out they thought it was wrong.
There all year.
We got one more little piece here. Is this it? Okay, so there's a couple things. This was a little 4-minute show that is much more active than what typically happens on any given minute on the boulevard. But we have an app that even I was able, I'm lying, somebody help me. But I was even able to get, and it's called, you go to your app store and you get an app called Uptown Radio. And I will show you in real time how it works. It comes on and it says, I get this, and then what it does, and you can play it through your car's Bluetooth speakers as you drive down the boulevard. There's sort of Christmas music, and it's various styles from what you heard just then. Now if I get it turned off.
And the trees will be choreographed
But
to
it's,
that
the
music.
trees are choreographed to that, some more dramatically than others.
You
But
can
Delia,
download it, it's an Android and Apple, so you get it in your app store before
You
and
mean like like tonight?
Yeah.
I could-
Yeah.
You can do it right now.
right now.
That means, the trees are actually on at the moment, just because they show up well if the days are cloudy. We just made the decision to go 24/7 on them. But the long as we have the trees running, the app is running music and it's choreographed. At 6, Kendall's gonna love this, at 6, 7, 8, and 9 o'clock, and at midnight, this kind of very active show goes off. So if you happen to be in the area, it's a little bit more startling than listening to Bing Crosby sing Silent Night.
Yeah, I noticed last night at 6 o'clock, it was kind of Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Exactly.
Flashing.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah,
intense.
People just driving that don't know about this are part of it.
one thing I think it has done is slowed traffic down on the boulevard. And getting stopped at a traffic signal is like, that's okay, you know, you can do
How
that.
do you promote this app? I mean,
Uh,
who knows about it?
We are,
So we did it from the stage that evening, and we'll do it heavily through social media.
I mean, is there any way to put a sign up, like,
Uptown Radio.
Get the app.
get the app and then like,
And if you will stick around after the board meeting, we'll set you up.
Right next to the
I think I.
drive to text sign.
yeah.
And again, with all of the engagement we have in our social media, that's a perfect place for those people that who may have been to this event will know. And it's a great way for us to promote the app.
And I have to, compliment Delia and a team of thousands who put this event on. 80-some police officers we have out here. The world has changed. We put concrete barriers between the parking lot driveways or any of the side streets coming into Post Oak Boulevard, but just because there's been things throughout the world. And we have, HPD is here with dogs sniffing for bombs. We have SWAT teams in the area. So we try to not only provide a very nice night for people, but also so something is safe. And I will guarantee you, 32 years ago, we weren't worried about that. We were worried about if somebody would notice. But anyway, Delia.
Great job, by the way.
Kalia,
Unbelievable.
literally every one of the staff is involved in help making it happen. And then a whole bunch of other people who just have been involved with it over time. And it comes off and almost without a hitch. And our board member, Doc Cunningham, asked me after the event if she thought it was all right, if I thought it was great. I said, yeah, I thought it was good. She said, what about the flowers? Here she comes. And the thing, she was giving a little trouble that we actually pulled the flowers out because she had to plant them and for later in the season. So anyway, everything went well, safe, secure, no incidents, no problems.
Thanks for making us look good.
It's great. I hope you all enjoyed it.
That was great.
Well
Mr. Chairman,
done.
I have nothing else.
Well, with that, we're adjourned.
What's on this?